Appreciate it.
Well, welcome White Lake community. We are so happy to have you here. This is a wonderful community that we live in, and you know it's. Is this going through?
Yeah.
I talk with my hands. So.
It's an ice cream cone.
This is a wonderful community that we live in, and that is apparent by the fact that all of you are here, and you care enough about what's going on to want to be here and hear what's going on. So my name is Sue Mack, and I am with Common Ground Community. Raise your hand if you've heard of Common Ground Communities. Oh, I love it. Thank you. We are a group of individuals that like randomly came together to start, and it really was random. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason, and started talking about the division within our community. You know, it's broader than that, but what we can do is we can impact the community. And what we see is the community. So we got together and we talked about what is this all about? And one of the conclusions that we came to is information. We live in the age of information. And there is so much information out there. And some of it conflicts with others. And then people start to fight about the information they've heard versus the information. And so we thought, we really need to get together and we really need to start getting people the right information, the factual information. So we created this mission statement that you all have in very small letters on your agenda. Yes, but you can read that and we'll go over it later.
It looks like this.
Vanna is going to show. Melanie, Vanna is going to show.
I just thought I'd hold it so you can see which one she's talking about.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. So everybody in the group who organized this, if you could stand up, I would really appreciate that. So everybody can see you. Yay! You know, a lot of work does go into this, so it's really appreciated. If you would like to be part of Common Ground Communities, just put a little check mark by your name in the column on the sign-in sheet. Also, you could write it on the back of your surveys, which I'll go over later. But we would like to expand our group and get more people involved in bringing White Lake area together in the face of adversity and struggle. So we're doing this forum today because we want to get that information out to everybody. We want that factual information to come out. And initially, and this is interesting, we contacted Social Security. I talked to the PR person in Grand Rapids. We talked to the Veterans Administration. We talked to the Farm Bureau. And interestingly, they said, we are not allowed to talk at a forum or at a presentation. So they couldn't be here. All that they can do is, and they've been told this, all that they can do is they can tell you what services they provide, and they can tell you how to access those services. And I don't know how you guys feel, but that's kind of concerning. So then we thought, well, we're going to go more locally. We're going to get people who are right here and have information that really impacts us. So we got Dan Gorman, White Lake Area Public Food Service. We got Will Wilson, the CEO of the Disability Network. Jeff Johnson, Superintendent of Montague Area Public Schools. CJ Van Weeren, Superintendent of Whitehall Public Schools. And Virginia DeMumbro. Say that fast. White Lake Community Library Director. So, tonight, what we're going to do, we didn't know who was going to come to this. We really hope to get the spectrum of people. But as I'm looking across this room, I don't think we got the spectrum. So we set it up so that if somebody had a grievance about something, if you're library book was overdue and you had a grievance about this, you couldn't start talking about that. You know, or if you had some issue with the schools in whatever way, you didn't like how your child was graded, you couldn't talk about that. This is just simply about funding and what's happening with the funding, if anything. Now, I don't know what these people are going to talk about. They might say to us, no, there's no changes at all. All the programs are the same. Don't worry about it. But we're here to learn that. That's what we want to do. So, before we get started, you guys all have some cards. And as people talk, yes, the pink is for the food service, green is for the schools, blue is disability, and the yellow is the library. And that's only in purple because yellow didn't show up. So you have those. You have a survey, which Melanie is going to go over later. And I hope you get a lot of good information tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to the renowned Norm Kittleson, who has already told us what he does. Do you want this?
I'll use this one.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Norm Kittleson, in case you didn't know already. I've been living in the White Lake area for 31 years now. And among other things in the community, I was a teacher in the area for a very long time. I worked at Health West in Muskegon for 5 years before I kind of retired a couple of years ago. I serve on 2 community boards, including the library boards, and so don't think of this as like a conflict of interest because I'm here as a neutral person tonight. I also serve on the White Lake Fire Authority Board. I'm a former city council member. I work at Blue Lake Public Radio, and I do all kinds of other stuff too. So what I want to do tonight is go over just sort of the housekeeping stuff and the ground rules. So here are the things that we'd like you to try to pay attention to tonight. Listen to understand. Sometimes when we listen, we sort of have like oral blinders on, and we're only hearing what we want to hear, and we don't hear things that we don't want to hear. So try to keep an open mind and listen to understand. And if you don't understand something, that's what the question cards are for. One person talks at a time. That's pretty simple. You should have learned that in kindergarten, and we'll try to keep that going. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Often, all the years that I was teaching, I would tell people, don't be afraid to ask a question because almost guarantee you that there's at least one other student in the classroom that has the same question as you do. So don't be afraid to ask a question, and there's no such thing as a stupid question. Be respectful. Again, back to kindergarten. I think you all know what that means. I'm here to make sure that people are doing that, and if I think people aren't, then I will call you out on it in a polite way. But I do have a teacher voice, and I'm not afraid to drop it on you. And I do have eyes in the back of my head, and I will give you the look. And it is withering. You can just ask my former students. Trust me. Any questions about any of this before we begin? All right. Very good.
The next process, you want to go over how we're going to do it?
Oh,
I can do it if you like.
yeah. So what we're going to do is each organization represented here is going to take about 10 minutes to present information regarding the funding process and the impact on their organization of that funding process. As they talk, you can write down any questions on your cards, hold them up, and people will be circulating to pick them up. Again, here green for the schools, pink for the food, blue for the disability, yellow for the library. Please write your email address on your question so we can get back to you if we run out of time. We want to make sure everybody's questions get answered. If you don't want to provide your email, that's fine, but if you want an answer that we can't get to, then put your email on there. Once all the organizations are presented, we'll go back to each organization, and we'll have about 15 minutes to read questions about whichever organization it is that you have a question about. And we'll finish the forum with each organization sharing what we can do to support them as community members. So it's really important that we give them that opportunity because if we want to be part of a community, then it's really important that we support each other, and it means that we support the institutions that help support our community. It's a beautiful little symbiotic circle. And then we'll talk about next steps as the conclusion. Any questions about any of that? Quiz tomorrow, so be ready. All right, who's first up?
We're in line.
Oh, all right, so Dan. All right, Dan Gorman, who is the White Lake Area Public School Food Service Director, all-around great guy, friend of mine. Take it away, Dan.
All right.
Do you want to use this or do you want to use this?
No.
Before you get going, Dan, though, I want to make sure that everybody understands what Dan brings to our community, and that he was one of the first, I have to tell it, I think it's really wonderful. You can't have that behind you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Tell me what it was.
So in Montague, we were the first Healthier US Challenge school in Michigan, and we got to go to the White House to meet Michelle Obama. And just to tell a little quick story with it, we got the award, and it said for the director and a guest, and the cook and a guest. And at that time, Dave Sipka was our superintendent. And I'm like, okay. And so the first person I called was my wife, Mary. We're going to Washington, D.C. Second person was Dave Sipka. Dave Sipka says, who are we taking as your guest? Like it was going to be him and the principal. And I'm like, I told my wife. My wife is the guest. All right, so there's that. And that can go up here. This is my clicker. And hey. So let's talk about school meals. So I do want to clarify, I am the school food service director for Montague Area Public Schools and North Muskegon Public Schools. Formerly, probably back 5-6 years ago, I did run Whitehall, but then we shifted to North Muskegon. John Havleter is the Whitehall Food Service Director right now. I wanted to start out and really just kind of do a level set with 5 things about school meals. And the first thing, and this is always a weird thing to say, but we need food. When you have the hierarchy, Maslow's hierarchy, food is on the bottom. And so students, to be successful, need food. And it's surprising sometimes as we get into all the complications that gets missed. That, yup, we need to make sure for our kids to be successful, they need food. The second thing is food insecurity in our community is real. So in the statewide average for food insecurity is about 8%. Muskegon County is 16%. If you just think that's because of the heights in Muskegon, you're incorrect. It's in this area. The other part about that is food insecurity is not limited to just people who qualify for free and reduced meals. We can have our people in our community with income levels where they wouldn't qualify for free and reduced meals, and they might not have food at home. And so in schools, so we are, the state of Michigan, one of 8 states in the nation, are free meals for all. And we'll talk a little bit about how that funding works, but the state has made that happen for us. When we were not, the social stigma of being a free kid is a real thing. I know adults in our community who will tell me, I was a free kid, I never took free breakfast because free kids took breakfast. And so being in a spot, and I've been doing this for 25 years, and being in a spot where the only job is just to feed all the kids, it makes a difference. And so that's really important. You know, the other thing that I'll hear, and they'll always bring up, why are we feeding the superintendent's kids free meals? They don't need that. And I look at it and it's like, if you look at all the services that schools provide, none of them ask what the parent's income level is. Nobody's saying, wait, Johnny, how much does your dad make before I'm going to let you get on the school bus? We don't do it with textbooks. We don't do it with Chromebooks. Even athletics, for the most part, we don't ask that question. But for some reason in schools, we've always asked that question. But then we go back to, it's like, but they need food to be successful. And then the other thing I'll just say about it, if you're talking about smart government and you're talking about a well-used dollar in government, school meals, and this is my shtick, it's the best dollar we spend. The dollar goes to American farmers, it goes to food producers, it comes to, goes to food manufacturers and comes to the schools. It gives meaningful work to lunch ladies. Are you kidding me? Lunch ladies? What's better than that? And then we're a nutritional safety net for kids. So when we talk about supporting school dollars, I think that's a really important thing to kind of keep in mind. And so how does the funding work in schools? For the most part, school meals has always been funded by the USDA and the federal government. And so in the school system, we have a separate fund. And we use that fund to cover all costs. So the general fund that schools have for textbooks and teachers don't come to us in schools. But what has happened recently with Michigan legislation is the Michigan legislators who will say, take all the federal money you can get, what is not covered federally, we're going to pick up with state funds. And so that's happened the last couple of years. We went through the pandemic, it was all federally funded, and then we went through a year where it wasn't, and then we finally did it. And what's really nice, there's a program called Community Eligibility Provision, and what that does, so instead of going to all these parents and saying, give me a form and tell me how much you make, give me a form and tell you how much you make, what they do is they take SNAP information. And they say, okay, this is your community, this is how many people qualify for SNAP. Here is, we know that there's probably more kids that qualify than that, so we're going to do a multiplier on top of that, and that's what we're going to give you. In Montague, 70% of our funding comes from the federal and 30% comes to the state. The real nice part of being on this program is I don't have any resources that go to see if Johnny has money for his lunch account. I don't have to go to a parent and say, hey, you didn't fill out this form. I don't have to ask a parent for a pay stub to make sure they can prove that that's their income level. So CEP has really been a game changer for us. So the other things that we've gotten from federal support, which have been some really great programs, and I have a flyer on it, there's a thing called Rural Non-Congregate Summer Feeding. For a long time, there's been conversations, it's like, you know what, we feed all these kids. We feed 30 million lunches a day during the school year, but what are we doing during the summer? How are those kids getting fed? And the old program was, well, if you come to the school during certain times, you can get one meal. Oh, but I need to watch you eat the meal to make sure it doesn't go home. And so they changed it, and once again, came from the pandemic, good idea. We can hand out, over the summer, we can hand out a week's worth of lunches for children under 18, lunch and breakfast. We give it to you in one shot, and we'll be doing that. Both Whitehall will be doing it at Whitehall High School, and we'll be doing it up at Rothbury this summer. There's also a program called Sunlux, and I have a flyer on that one that talks about, and that is if you qualify for free meals, you can get this like an addition to your SNAP card or an individual SNAP card, and it's $120 for the summer. The other thing I'd like to talk about as a state program, and this has been around for about 5 years, there's a program called 10 cents per meal for farms and kids. And what that allows is, if I buy $100 worth of apples, of local apples, then the state will give me $50 back for that. And what that has really done over time, which is awesome, is schools are working really hard to try to figure out how we can get more local food. And I'm working with the schools in Muskegon County. Asparagus is coming next week. We're going to have hundreds and hundreds of pounds of asparagus are going to be in our schools. We're trying to do it with other things. We have a processing kitchen that we're working on in Muskegon County. And so those really are the supports that we have in the programs. Here's some of the cuts that have happened from the federal government. One of the things that got pulled back, it was awarded to the state, it was $30 million called Local Food for Schools, and it got pulled back within the last couple months. And what that is it had two different funding streams. One came to schools, one went to food pantries with the $30 million. And what it would be is, it'd be for me to buy local food. Minimally processed local food. It could be milk, cheese, it could be chicken or beef, and also fresh produce. In 23-24, we had this program. Montague had it. It was $31,000, and that money has been pulled away, and we're operating without it. The other one that got pulled away, the National Farm to School grant that has been around for decades, and we were applying for this next year, they ended it for this year. And they're going to reevaluate it and look at it again next year. But that funding won't be available for this year. So I'm missing a few slides, so I'm just going to talk.
Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. So the potential cuts are the things that might have been cut. The program I talked about earlier, which was the CEP program, that was one of the recommendations that they were talking about cutting. So qualifying for students for free meals, the recommendation that they had for that is you had to fill out an application and everyone had to turn in a check stub to verify that. And we did a lot of work with, there's a state organization called School Nutrition Association of Michigan, and they really fought, and so that feels like it's been put on the back burner. And I see my time is ticking away. And he said there's going to be music, so I want to listen to music. All right, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Remember to write your questions. And this is
Or
coming
just
around.
hold it up and we'll grab it. If you have a
If
question.
you've got one already written, I can grab it, but
Yep. Food pink,
it goes on this one.
we'll grab them, hold them up, we'll come around and get them.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll start at the back.
All right. Next up, we have Will Wilson, who is the CEO of our Disability Network. And let's give him a nice welcome.
Hello, everyone. I am Will Wilson. I am the CEO with Disability Network West Michigan. We are the local center for independent living. And I say local because we have 15 centers in the state of Michigan. So all 83 counties in Michigan is covered by a center. Our center covers 5 counties: Muskegon, Newaygo, Oceana, Mason, and Lake County. Our main office is in Muskegon County, and then we have a satellite office in Lake, Oceana, and Newaygo. We currently don't have an office in Mason County, but we're working on it. Okay? So as a Center for Independent Living, we provide services to all individuals, any individual with a disability that identify as having barriers that's keeping them from being able to live, work, function independently. Our services, we have 5 federally mandated core services. So all the centers in the state of Michigan will offer these core services, and then our services will differ based on local funding. But the core services we offer is peer support and mentoring, information and referral services, individual and systems advocacy, independent living skills supports, and then transitions or diversion services. So basically, anyone that's in a nursing home, we try to work with them to help them return to their community, or we work with individuals that's home to prevent them from being able to go into a facility. So that would be our transition services. So some demographic information. So 2025, approximately 1 in 4 individuals have a disability, while the numbers continue to rise due to, we have an aging population, increased life expectancy, so individuals are living longer, and then data collection is more inclusive of children with disabilities now. Oftentimes you'll see some numbers or data that show adults with disabilities. But now you're seeing more and more information that includes children with disabilities now. And our services are inclusive of everyone. So 0 to 100 and above, we provide services too. Muskegon County had a population of 15.6% with disabilities, and that was 2023 numbers. So right now, Disability Network, we're operating with a budgeted income of $1.2 million. 33% of that is federal dollars. 90% of that funds our transportation program in Oceana and Newaygo County. So that's money that's funneled to us through the Federal Transit Administration. So they already approved our fiscal year 26 award amount, so we're not worried about losing that. 47% of our budgeted income is our state core dollars, and that those fund those core services that I mentioned. We recently asked Governor Whitmer for a $6 million increase across all the 15 centers. And although she didn't approve that increase, she did not cut our funding. So that's a win-win for us. Our state level supports currently Representative Van Workum and Representative Will Snyder have been some huge advocates for the Centers for Independent Living, for our center in particular. And so less than 1% of our senior millage, less than 1% of our budgeted income, is from our senior millage. And that covers our transportation voucher program for Muskegon County. And then the remaining funding comes from our local grants and donations. Any cuts or changes? So no direct funding cuts as to date, but we know there's so much uncertainty out there. Things change from day to day. However, cuts to federal or state programs will impact our consumers, which then impacts our services, programs, and delivery. So say for instance, if there's cuts to, say for instance, Medicaid, although we don't receive any Medicaid funding, if our consumers, if there's cuts to Medicaid, our consumers are affected by that. Then that means that we have to make changes to our service delivery. We can only work with what we have. So I currently have 17 staff. So 17 staff, we're covering 5 counties. We're stretched very thin. So if there's cuts to any federal programs, that means that more individuals will come to us for services. And although we're going to try our hardest to not cut programs, it may mean that some services may be scaled back. We may not be, like I said, we don't have an office in Mason County right now, but we hope to have one there. But it may mean that some of our other counties, our staff may have to go to those counties maybe once a week. So we'll find a way to still provide the services, but it's definitely going to be on a lower scale. Some other changes. So right now there's some threats to eliminate the Administration for Community Living, who pretty much provides our federal guidance. And they're talking of shifting that department to the Health and Human Services. And what that would mean for us is, well, we've already experienced it. Now they require us to provide a written justification in regards to how the money is spent. So how it worked before, each time we would request a payment or reimbursement, we just put in the amount, and we would send a documentation pretty much showing the justification for the amount that we were requesting to be reimbursed. Now they're requiring us to put a lengthy justification in regards to how the money is spent, to the penny. And with that brings about, well, we know that Department of Health and Human Services have experienced some significant cuts with their staffing, tens of thousands of staff. So with that, it's taken a lot longer for our reimbursements to come through. Before we can submit a reimbursement, and we may get it within maybe 3 or 4 days. Now we're looking at weeks. It's taking them some weeks to reimburse us for monies that we've already spent out. Whether it's programming, spent out in staffing, but it's taking much longer for that to come. And it's because those agencies that's reimbursing us, they don't have the staff. Their staff is now stretched very thin. We had to submit, every year we have to submit, we call it a performance report. It's pretty much letting the federal government know our performance for the year. And they'll send it back to us if they have any questions or anything like that. Well, it took them a long time to let us know that they had even received it. So when I reached out to them, a staff person emailed me back and said that because of their funding, because of their cuts, they're down to bare minimum staff. And so they anticipate probably 6 months before they even review our performance report from last year. So that's where we're at right now. How can you help? Contact your legislators and share your story. As I write reports to the government, to our funding sources, to let them know our numbers, that's just a narrative. When they're actually able to hear directly from individuals that will be impacted by any cuts or increases, that definitely helps. Share your story in regards to how the cuts will impact you directly. Attend town hall meetings, coffee hours, public forums such as this. It definitely gets the word out. Show your support to agencies and programs and services such as ours by writing letters, sending photos in support of services or programs that have assisted you. When I submit grant reports to the foundation or whoever, I like to submit photos to show, what their dollars are going to, as opposed to just giving them a narrative. Volunteer if you're able to. More bodies equal the ability to serve more. Okay. And then donate, if you're able to. More resources from others lessens our financial dependency on the federal government or the state government. And that was it.
Yeah, I don't know where the basket is right now.
Over
down
here.
there.
Basket.
Okay, I don't know if it was clear last time. My husband tells me we weren't clear. But yeah, this one is going to be blue for him. So if you have questions on this last topic, write them on your blue cards. And then I'm going to send the basket around for the blue ones.
All right. Get your blue cards ready.
Hope everybody heard me.
All right, next up, we have Jeff Johnson, who is the superintendent of the Montague Area Public School System.
I'm going to send this through again.
Give Jeff a warm welcome.
And
Oh, I'm sorry, you're tag teaming it. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I thought it was one at a time. Yes?
I can take that one.
Okay, all right. I didn't mean to give CJ short shrift. You guys are both really big guys, so I don't want to get into it. Biggie dude over here. All right, here's the lavalier for you, and...
I'm going to use my teacher voice. I
Yeah,
think
there you go.
I'll be able to hear me.
Yeah, we know what we're doing, don't we? Yeah. Okay, all right. We got educators in the house. We don't need no microphone.
All right, so I'll start. I'm CJ Van Weren, the new superintendent in Whitehall. Just started officially in this role back in January. So super excited. I've been in the community for about 12 years as a teacher, middle school principal, and now superintendent. So super excited to take on this opportunity.
Jeff Johnson. I've been superintendent of Montague Area Public Schools for 10 years now. It's hard to believe it's been that long. Originally from Montague. Went to school at the middle school and high school in Montague here. Montague graduate, left for 20-some years and came back. So back to the White Lake community and have 3 kids in the district. So we're going to go fast through these slides just to make sure you get all the information, and then obviously put out some questions for us if you have any.
So, school funding comes from a few different sources. The main source that our school funding comes from is the state of Michigan. Back in 1994, they changed this structure, and they now have what is called a school aid fund, which is comprised of this pie chart over here. Mostly is sales and use tax, income tax, property tax, so on. You can see a misconception, state lottery funds, you can see it's about 6.2%. Seems like sometimes with as much gambling going on that it'd be more than that, but local funding comes from local property taxes. Usually this comes especially from the non-homestead properties, and it is voter-approved millages and supports specific needs like building maintenance, technology, upgrades, your day-to-day operating cost. Like you probably saw on a ballot today, if you voted already, there's an operating millage for Whitehall District Schools. That's that local funding, non-homestead. And then the last piece is federal funding. Federal funds are allocated through different grants. Title grants are the big ones, and then also IDEA, which is special education money.
All right, so foundation allowance, $9,608 per student this past year. I do want to make note, CJ, if you go back one slide there, when we're talking about the funding and we're working into that $9,608, we take that dollar per the number of students that you have in the district. They start out with that local funding. So they're going to take that local taxes, the property taxes, all those dollars that come together within your community and start there. And then the state funding goes on top of that in order to reach that number of the $9,608 times how many students you have in the district. So sometimes you'll hear of a district that is out of formula. That means that their local funding, their property taxes, homestead properties, all that, such as Ludington in the past, would be a local funding that they're out of formula, so they're actually gaining more money than that $9,608 per student. So there is an order within that. Additional funding mechanisms, categorical grants, ISD offers some regional services and grants as well, and then local bonds and millages, as you heard there as well, where a school district will go out based upon the needs around their facilities.
So there's basically 3 types. Operating millage is like what I had hit on with Whitehall being on the ballot today. It's a 18 mil tax on non-homestead property, so your businesses, second homes. It can only be 18 mils. It is the state, like Jeff was saying, the state expects you to levy those 18 mils. And so if you don't levy the 18 mils or levy less than the 18 mils, the state is not going to make up that difference. They know exactly how much 18 mils is on your local taxes, and they assume that you take that much money in, and they're given their share off that number. So, for example, we're at 17.9832 right now in Whitehall this year. So we are not technically getting our full funding, our full 9608. However, it is really close because of that 9832. So we're trying to do another 10 years, which is pretty typical with these operating millages, and so that we can receive the full per pupil funding. Bond proposals. This is the only way that schools are able to make these capital improvements. Your remodels, constructing new buildings, major renovations, a lot of times purchasing school buses because of how expensive those have become. These bond proposals are on everyone in your local community. So that's, if you see your tax bill, you'll see probably like a debt millage rate, and then that's where that money comes from. Usually spans 20 to 30 years. Schools go and sell bonds, you get that funding, and then you pay it back over time. Sinking funds, I know Whitehall does not have a sinking fund, Montague does, and so that's kind of that pay-as-you-go method. It collects throughout the years, and you can use those to fund building repairs, security enhancements, technology. You can't use that money on your salaries or your day-to-day operating expenses.
All right, as CJ said previously, Michigan does not provide any state aid for school facilities. So that's why those bonds are an important part of the school facilities and making sure that your facilities are up to the quality that they need to for the student learning. Funds needed for capital infrastructures must come from a voter-approved bond and millage. These funds will be used on building and upgrading school facilities, but it's not used on people, right? So it is on just specifically for those buildings. The state caps the amount districts are able to raise and provides some support for districts who take on debt for the capital infrastructure. Charter schools, if you have a question around that, because they do not have a tax base within that component for bonds or millages, they are able to levy dollars for capital. They are unable to levy dollars for capital infrastructure. Therefore, they have to rely on their foundational allowance. So they do use their foundational allowance or their dollars that they receive from the state.
So going with that, school financial funding and being responsible for funding the school facilities. This gives kind of a breakdown, and if you look at paragraph 2 there, there's some inequitable funding that goes into this based on your local taxes and how much you're being able to collect on a millage. Okay, so it says imagine 2 schools, they both need a new elementary school. District A is thriving, it's a wealthier community. District B might be small, a few local businesses, rural area of the state. Because District A has more taxable property value than District B, residents would pay lower tax rates as they share of their income in that community than those in District B. So the study there on the bottom, the tax burden ranged from 1.47 mils in the most property wealthy districts to 22.3 mils in the district with the lowest taxable value. And that's to build the exact same elementary school. So like that range of funding sometimes is pretty hard to deal with on especially the smaller rural communities.
All right here, federal contributions to K-12. So these would be federal funded components. So when we talk about federal funding, these are some of the things that we see from the federal government. Title I, support low-income students. So within every building, there would be those students that would be meet a certain criteria based upon and be designated as Title I. So that would be extra dollars that could be used within the school district for those students. Over 90% of Michigan public schools receive Title I funding, which is used for supplemental instruction intervention programs and additional staffing. Sometimes you'll see it in your most needed districts. The school itself will be Title I as a whole, depending on how you move forward. IDA, so Special Education Services, under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, federal funds support services for students with disabilities. These funds assist in covering costs for specialized staff, individualized instruction, and necessary accommodations. School nutrition programs, Mr. Gorman already talked about that. The federal funding for our lunch, breakfast and lunch programs are connected with that as well. And then Medicaid reimbursement. So oftentimes you don't think of schools with Medicaid, but for our OTs and our PTs within the school districts and the billing that they can do, or others around that therapy services that can be billable, that does help in the process as well. All ours run through the ISD, but we do have those OT and PT individuals within all our districts in Muskegon County.
Cool. The other one didn't show up.
Yeah.
There was another thing like this next to it, but there's kind of 2 prongs in the federal budget. We could just skip this slide here, Jeff, and we'll go, oh wait.
Oh, look at this.
So, watch it. Oh, look at that. 2-prong process. There we go. The reconciliation bill, which is your, oh, we're out of time. Oh, this was the federal part.
Well, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, finish this slide.
Go ahead.
Well, that's okay. Reconciliation side. This is your like Medicaid, school lunch and breakfast. This takes just the majority of the Senate to vote on something like this for changes or things like that that could come from the federal government. Discretionary spending, these are your bigger ones. These are the ones we're hearing about, special ed, title, shutting down the U.S. Department of Ed. The discretionary spending bills take 60 votes in the Senate to pass. And so it's more than just the majority. And so these ones require obviously more input and more people on the same page in order to eliminate something like that. So more worried maybe on our end about some of these bills in this side of it than we would be in the second prong where it takes more people in the Senate in order
Can you go
to.
back to that other slide?
Yes.
All right, so what's next? The future of funding in Michigan depends on pending state budgets, decisions, potential federal spending cuts, and how the school fee is ultimately allocated. Right now, across the state of Michigan, no one knows. I would say even at the federal level, no one knows. I would say, and not to speak for CJ, but at this point in time, we'll see when we get there. I think that this is that point and stage of the political aspect of things where one numbers are way out here and one numbers are way out here, and neither of them will be true. And we'll work ourselves to the middle on some of the things that are taking place into those, and we'll deal when we get there. At this time, I think that we're trying to stay the course of school districts. I don't see any major drastic components at this point in time that you'll see, at least through our lobbyists and some of the thoughts. It's not to say that the Medicaid and the federal funding, as CJ said, due to the bills that they're trying to pass right now might have some effect, but I think that that's part of the process that they're going through within schools right now. The increase of dollar per pupil could take place in the state of Michigan, according to some numbers that are out there, but then there's also hidden cuts, right? So just because we see that $10,000 per student doesn't necessarily mean that we as schools would get that much more. There's also other discretionary funds that maybe we don't get as much of, whether it be through some of the other funding resources that would allow us to not have the same amount of money as what we have in the past. So keeping it short, put your questions together so that we can make sure we answer on those as well.
We had 2 guys talking, so we really should have got 20 minutes.
Well, running an efficient classroom is all about time management, right? So, and I just want to add something here that they didn't touch on. As a special education teacher of over 20 years, one of my major concerns is IDEA funding. Now, the federal law says that the federal government is responsible for funding up to 40% of special ed funding for states and districts. The federal government in the, 50 years that IDEA has been around, have never funded more than 25%. So about half. They've never met slightly more than half of their obligation. Now, what does that do? That shifts that funding deficit down to the states and the local districts that don't have the money to begin with. So those students with special needs have been getting short shrift for decades. And I will tell you, as somebody who was in the trenches for years, it makes a big difference. So when you're talking to your legislators about this stuff, tell them to fully fund IDEA. There was our former state representative, who now represents a district south of us. I asked him in front of 400 people about 5 or 6 years ago if he would support fully funding IDEA. Of course, he prevaricated and equivocated and said, oh, we need to have, we'll meet with you about this, and he never did, and shook my hand in front of 400 people, and I couldn't get a meeting with him in 6 months, so I finally gave up. So that's kind of the attitude that we're up against. So, you got to advocate, folks.
So that's your federal.
Yes, the IDEA is the federal law,
Okay.
Individuals with Disability Education Act.
Okay.
So I will get off my soapbox now and introduce Virginia DeBunbroom, our esteemed.
my soapbox? All right.
Yeah. Well, actually, you're pretty short, so you probably better
might
get on
be
a
a
soapbox.
soapbox. Oh, I might
Our
actually
esteemed
not.
library director, and wonderful human being.
Okay, so, my name is Virginia DeMumbrum. I've been the director here at the White Lake Community Library for 6 years. This is my 7th year. But before that, I was a Storytime lady for 18 years. I helped move into this building. I was one of the first employees moving in. And I have to make sure I get this part of the presentation right because I see at least 2 founding board members here in the room as well. So I'm going to be talking about library funding in general for the state and talk about our own history and library funding locally here and the impact of the federal cuts that are possibly in the works. The 3 main takeaways I want to leave you with, though, are first of all, most of our funding is local. Second, the federal funding is still critically important, even though it's not the majority of our funding. And last but not least, we are not going anywhere. So, how we got here? Let's start there. So first of all, there's a mix of libraries across the state. The 2 main kinds are district libraries that levy their own villages and collect their own taxes. And then there are the municipal libraries that are funded as a line item on either the county budget or the city budget or whatever, or township even. So there's different ways that we are funded. We started off, well, first of all, we started off as a private library and a private home in the 1880s here in the city of Whitehall. 1935, the Works Progress Administration, we had a public library for the first time here in the city. By 1943, we were city funded as part of the city's budget. We had a city library, and it served all of the city residents, but it was also eventually part of the cooperative, which meant we served everybody in the area, regardless of whether they lived in the city. We formed a district library in 1998, and you'll see that we just sort of skipped over there all the chaos in the middle that happened when the city announced in 1996 that they were going to defund the library. That was right around the time I moved here with my small children. We got involved in the campaigns. There were 2 different campaigns. We had to first form the district and get the voters to approve the district. Then we also had to pass a bond proposal to build this fabulous building, and we had to pass an operating millage. So this building opened in the fall of 2000. The next couple slides, I just threw in for fun because see that little guy, actually the tall kid on his knees in the front? That's my son at a story time thing. Before I worked at the library, when Pam led them on a craft project, and that painted rock he's holding, I still have in my living room. And this slide also mentions Betty. This is from a previous presentation I did, and I can't talk about this library without giving Betty the credit that she is owed for the vision that she had. She was the director, Betty Carlson was the director of the city library when the city manager said, guess what? We're cutting that from the budget. We're not going to have a city library. And Betty said, over my dead body. And she found a way. So this picture is also, this slide is also just because that is Betty right there. Plus the pictures of the construction are kind of fun to look at. It's been 25 years already. Wow. And that's the building today. And it's about to get a new canopy over the front doors and some new tower stuff this summer. That's the left-hand slide over there, left-hand side of the slide is just this year's annual report, just the statistics. That's available as a handout if you'd like to read more of those up close. So those are in there just for fun before we get to the boring part. Here comes the numbers. Okay, so I told you that most of our funding is local, and I wasn't kidding. 88.4% of our funding is from the property tax millage that we collect. So that's $568,000 for 2024. We get some state revenues too. We have to fill out an annual report for the state, our state aid report, and then they give us a little bit of money too. Patron services, that's just things like people renting the meeting room, that kind of thing. It used to be we would have fines or from renting DVDs or from charging for copies. We don't do any of that stuff anymore. We do have interest revenue now. We get all of our money at once because it's levied in your winter tax bill. You get that on your winter tax bill. We get it all at once. So we're able to invest some of that throughout the year. So we do get some interest revenue. And then we get 1.3% is donations and other. What you will notice is it doesn't say anything about federal funding anywhere on there because we don't get any direct federal funding. That's not how we benefit from federal funds. Oh, I just wanted to highlight on the millages. So how we did this was in 1999 when those 2 millages were approved, we have a 0.7 operating millage that was passed in perpetuity, which means forever. That one never has to be voted on again. And we also had a $1.7 million construction bond that was paid off over 20 years. When that construction bond was paid off, the library board at that time opted to put a proposal on the ballot for an additional 0.25 millage. It kind of replaced what people were already paying for the construction of the building. And after 20 years, we needed it to start repairing the building. It was time for new HVAC stuff, a whole bunch of things that our 0.7 and operating was not going to cover. So that passed in the midst of the pandemic in 2020, and that goes for 10 years. So it would need to be back on the ballot in 2030 if we want to renew that. We do not collect, so the 0.7 and the 0.25 adds up to 0.95 Because of Headley rollbacks, we do not collect .95 anymore. We are down to .91 because property values here have gone up, and so we cannot collect the full amount. So, why am I here talking tonight then if everything's hunky-dory? Well, federal funding still does matter, and it matters a lot, more than you might think for this community. So the Institute of Museum and Library Services, as you all know, was put on the chopping block with the intent of shutting it down. But there are some federally mandated things that it does, and the way it does them is it divvies up the money. It's the only federal funding source for libraries and for museums. And the part that the libraries get goes to the Library of Michigan. So the state library here gives us our money, and they do it in different ways. One of them is direct grants, and we have qualified for some of those. We have been awarded some of those grants, and actually, the next slide I put it, go forward one more. $250,000 to the White Lake Library, and one of them, to be fair, was in partnership with the Muskegon Area District Library and Hackley Library. We got $150,000 as a grant from the federal government in order to make all of our libraries family place libraries so that we would focus more on serving our youngest patrons and working on early literacy, which is a big problem in Muskegon County. Just here at our local library, 1,000 books a year are borrowed or loaned from libraries outside our cooperative, and that is funded with that federal money by the Library of Michigan. We have a statewide delivery system that lets you borrow books from college libraries and bigger libraries all over the state. And National History Day is one of the groups that uses that the most around here. They're not the only ones that use it, but they use it the most. MEL databases. Databases is such a dry word, but consumer reports, auto repair guides, health, like journals, like peer-reviewed journals where you can get really good, solid information, test prep services, career stuff that our little library here could never afford the subscription for, but with the economies of scale and with a statewide contract for those services, it's affordable. So every single library in the state can offer those to their patrons because it's paid for by federal funding through the Library of Michigan. They can borrow from around the state, they can access these databases from their home, from their library, from out of state, as long as they put in their driver's license number. Another really big thing that we get out of those little bit of federal dollars is training opportunities. I was given the opportunity to earn a certificate in public library financial management from the University of Georgia for free because of one of those things, and it makes a big difference. There are librarians all over the state that are in charge of small-ish libraries, but we're a small library and our budget is almost $600,000 a year. If you're not someone who's got any training in how to manage money, which they don't teach in library school, by the way, this is a really good thing to have. And there's no way I would have been able to afford that out of the library budget. That couldn't have happened. I want to go back to the statewide one here. This is also available as a handout, but this is just the data that the state put out. $4.8 million in federal funds come to the state of Michigan. $3.5 million are used for the regular statewide stuff that I was just talking about, the MELCAT, which is the statewide borrowing, the MEL e-resources, which is all the databases and all the stuff you get at online, and another $385,000 or so in grants awarded directly to libraries. Another big project that they often fund is digitization projects. So getting local history online, getting yearbooks online, those kinds of things are being done too. And small libraries, again, would not be able to afford that without the support of the federal government and those funds. So it's $5 million, which in the grand scheme of things in the federal budget is a drop in the bucket. It doesn't come to us directly, but it benefits us very directly. It makes a big impact. I already talked about all of those. And that is it. I just want you to remember that we are mostly locally funded, federal dollars still matter, and we're not going anywhere. We will find a way, we will figure it out. So first of all, we have been told that for next year, there's a really good chance we will get half of our IMLS funding for the state of Michigan. Some letters have gone out, we're looking at possibly half is being restored, which is great, and we are lobbying our state legislators to ask them to help fill that hole if we don't get the rest of it. Humanities programs have also been cut through the National Humanities Council. Those impact us too. Those are the big library read programs that we do, bringing in authors and stuff. It's almost there. Okay, last thing, Braver Angels is coming. There'll be 3 workshops coming up soon. So I think this group might be interested in those. There's flyers over there. Please pick them up. The first one is
And
here.
Braver Angels really supports the Common Ground community that we're trying to put out there.
So you have a yellow card that has questions about the library. Please submit those now. Again, let's have a round of applause for all of our presenters. And thank them for the time that they gave. So now we're going to move into the Q&A section. So what I'm going to do is I will grab some cards, ask some questions, and then the presenters will have an opportunity to respond. And we'll take about 15 minutes or so to do that. So.
Okay, so we're going to start with food service.
Right. So first up is food service.
Do you want me to hand this to you? Or how do you want to use that? You want the
Back in
pad?
here. Yeah.
Questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all.
Pardon me?
They're in order. Yeah.
Like, that they came in? Oh,
Sorry.
oh, sort of like subject?
Yeah, yes, by subject.
Here's a good one. It's kind of a general question. What are the greatest barriers right now to ensuring every child has access to reliable nutrition?
You know, I think we've really made strides in the situation we're in right now, because we're in a position where we have free meals for all in Michigan. You know, like I said, we're one of 8 states that's doing it, and that has really lowered a lot of those barriers. And I also think in the districts I work in, we have breakfast in the classroom. We have second chance breakfast in our middle schools and high schools. And what that does is that gives our students the opportunities to access food. So I think if we always have a focus of how do we allow students to access food and not put up barriers, we really go a long way to kind of building that and doing that. And then one of the other things with school food, you know, there's been a lot of studies done that it's the healthiest, well-balanced food that our kids get today. And some of that is just because the meal's balanced. We have balanced proteins with fresh fruits and vegetables, low-fat milk. All of those things really give our students a great opportunity.
All right. Next question is the State Food Services Organization collaborating/monitoring effects of federal cuts? Are they in contact with other states' food services, directors, organizations? So are you in contact with people and trying to figure out a strategy to deal with all this?
Yeah, so I belong to both the School Nutrition Association and the School Nutrition Association of Michigan. I'm the legislative chair for the School Nutrition Association for Michigan. And every year we lobby in DC and we build those relationships with our legislators to help them understand the challenges we have, but also like when things make sense. And one of the questions was what can you do and how do you advocate? And I really think it's building those relationships. It's meeting with the legislator and saying, you know, here's the common sense stuff. It's not going to save you money if you make everyone fill out applications, because we're going to spend all our time on that instead of feeding kids, that type of stuff. So it really, there's a large network nationally, and I'm also involved with a bunch of directors in a lot of cities across the country, trying to get healthier food in schools, trying to have, you know, minimally processed foods, more local foods. All those things are efforts that we're working on across the country.
Okay, and then there are a whole bunch of questions that are basically asking the same thing, which is if there are cuts to funding, how will that affect not just the ability for you to feed students, but also, and this one asks about the quality of the nutrition that you're going to be able to offer.
So that is a really fair question because, you know, as we look at the funding that we have, one of the things we always look for is like, how can we serve better food? How can we serve better quality food? And if our funding gets cut, that's when we start having to make different choices. You know, one of the programs that we have, it's a U.S. program called the U.S. Commodity Program, and it's twofold where the government will buy commodity foods from farmers, and then we can get that food and have manufacturers make it, and so we get a discount. But it's not always the best. It's not always the most high quality, and so that would affect what we have. What we offer the students every day would change. We have a great fresh fruit vegetable bar every day that we do for our students, and some of that would get pulled back. I was in a classroom, and this is how quickly tastes change. I was talking to students, and we do a lot in our high school. We do a lot of fresh cut pineapple, and you have that as an opportunity. And there was a student that was complaining because a couple days a week we do canned pineapple, and they didn't think that was okay. We've come a long way. Are you kidding me? But that's their standard. And the other part of it is, if I don't find a way to kind of connect and have great food for kids, they'll make choices and they won't eat with us. You know, they'll you know, have flaming hot Cheetos instead. So it's really important for us to make sure it's something that our students want.
So the really pressing question is there pineapple on your pizza?
We do fresh cut pineapple on pizza, I would say maybe once every 2 weeks. So that is one of our initiatives.
All right. And so one last question. If funding for food is cut, how can we help?
Yes, right.
So really a lot of communication with your legislators and that, I mean, at the state level, what has not been decided in the state budget is free meals for all. So we've done it the past couple years, but that has to be reinitiated every year. So at a local level, having those conversations with our state legislators that this is really important and we want to connect with this and we know it's important for our kids, I think is a really big way that we can help. And I think those are the things that are going to make the difference.
All right. Thank you, Dan. Mr. Wilson, you ready to field some questions? Yes. Okay. This one asks, why do 90% of the transportation funds go to Oceana and Newaygo County?
So our transportation voucher program is for the rural counties because Muskegon County has public transit and the rural counties don't.
What about like the White Lake area?
Yeah, we don't have public.
We don't have.
There's no public transportation there.
So our senior our senior millage covers Muskegon County, and we have a transportation voucher program that covers Muskegon County.
Okay, right.
The White Lake area falls underneath the senior millage transportation.
So there's a question, are your reimbursements from state and federal levels both untimely, taking months, or is one better than the other? So is the state response faster than the federal response, I guess is what this is asking?
Yes.
Or vice versa?
The state response is much faster than the federal.
Yeah, that would make sense. And if you've been in touch with state lawmakers, what are they doing to try to help out, if anything?
So we've definitely been in touch with our legislators, and they've been very helpful in regards to getting the word, not just at the state level to the governor, but as well as a federal level, being able to get the word out, showing that they are in support of our programs, showing the impact, the need for the programs, and if there is a cut, what that impact would look like. And again, that's why I stress the importance of having pictures, statements from consumers and such, so it's not just our legislators or us as an agency providing that narrative, but it's giving our legislators an opportunity to show what the impact would look like.
Okay, and here are two questions that I'm going to sort of blend together. Are individuals with disabilities experiencing longer wait times or reduced access to services, and what programs or support services are now at risk due to budget cuts?
And again, so our consumers are experiencing cuts, whether it's Medicaid, they're going to experience those cuts. If there's cuts to food programs such as Meals on Wheels, then those are our consumers, so they're going to experience those cuts. And so when those cuts come down the line, then we're contacted with our consumers asking for an increase in services. Unfortunately, our center, we're not for emergency services. And so we have to, again, stretch our resources as thin as possible without completely eliminating them. So our consumers are definitely experiencing a longer wait time in regards to services, and they're also experiencing reduced services. So say, for instance, our transportation program, we allocate 100 miles a month to each individual. And so now we're looking at having to scale back to possibly, maybe 75 miles a month, 50 miles a month, to allow for all of our individuals to remain in the program without having to cut everyone or anyone completely out of the program. So it's definitely experiencing a scale back to ensure continued services.
Okay, and two more questions for you. One, and I don't, if you already spoke to this, then I apologize. What does the senior millage tax support in terms of the services that you provide?
So the senior millage, it provides our transportation voucher reimbursement program for Muskegon County directly.
Okay.
And that's for individuals, seniors with disabilities, to provide 100 miles a month transportation.
And then what partnerships or community efforts could help fill the gap left by funding shortfalls?
Partnerships, like I said, we're currently working with other local agencies, ARC Muskegon. So basically any local agency that's providing services to our seniors, to our youth, so the schools, being able to partner with the schools to make sure that our students are receiving the services that they're in need of. And then any other local agencies that's providing services to our seniors or individuals with disabilities, we're able to partner with them to ensure that there's continued service delivery and no cut in any of the services.
All right, thank you very much. Educators. So how does the defunding of the Department of Education impact special education, Title I, Head Start, and will we see cuts in those programs at our level, and if we do, when might we see them? Because I know there's already some funding in the pipeline.
Yeah, that's a great question. Until we have a better idea of where those cuts will take place or what that funding looks like, no one knows. And I do think that there's obviously them looking at the Department of Education as a whole and what positions or what funding sources could be reduced. Until that takes place, we as schools don't know what that means. I think at this point in time, they're looking at individuals and programs as a whole, which doesn't necessarily directly affect us in the federal fundings that we're receiving. I believe that, and this is a personal opinion, not as a district position, but that these federal choices, we won't at schools see the effects until next year, probably next year, in some of those things. Some of the things that have already taken place, we will probably stay the course. There could be less money in some areas, probably not more in other areas, but it wouldn't be the drastic cuts. I think some of the areas that they're looking to cut are within their own organization of the federal government, not necessarily the fundings to the schools at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add some of the things that are more concerning than others, Medicaid reimbursements, food programs, Dan talks about how essential it is for these kids to eat. We, as educators, we know that. Teachers know that. Kids that come hungry to classrooms don't always perform the way that they could. So those are some of the ones that, but again, like Jeff said, there's not a lot of answers. And we're just kind of in a wait and see, which for budgeting purposes and things like that, that Jeff and I are working on for next year and years to come, isn't always the best situation to be in, but we just make the best of it and see what happens.
I think every district is in a different spot as well. Obviously, where we're at within Montague and Whitehall, and some of the amount of federal funding necessarily for, for Montague, the federal funding is only about 3% of our total budget. So it's not necessarily like it would be earth-shattering within that world. Don't get me wrong, it would not be good, and we would have some funding issues on some different things or positions. But when you look at Muskegon Public Schools, that's a different number, and I think that is could be detrimental to a district like that over a period of time.
I would just like to add with School of Choice, I am a graduate of Muskegon Public Schools, and with School of Choice, Muskegon Public Schools has already lost so much federal and local funding. And now the students that don't have transportation to a different school district are suffering even more than they already were in a struggling school district.
Yeah.
Well, and that leads into the next question that I was going to pull, and I don't know if you wrote this question or not, but it ties in nicely. So thank you for that really nice segue.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Smooth transition up here. How does the school voucher system impact public school funding?
Well, okay, I'll take that one too.
You want to touch that hot stove?
Yeah, no,
10
so
years
obviously.
Hey Jeff, I gotta go.
Obviously, there's only so many dollars. I think that's it. Within any budget anybody's working with, there's only so many dollars. So if there's more schools that are receiving those state or federal fundings through the voucher programs, that would just mean less money as a whole for each individual school district. So to answer the question, it would be, I guess, less for all those involved. I think it would probably be split equally within a equation of some sort, but that if there's more schools receiving those fundings, that would affect us in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, school funding is a zero-sum game. So the more people that are eating a pie, the less piece of, everybody gets a smaller piece. Well, I guess, CJ, here's a question that you might get to answer today. What happens if the community does not pass a millage or bond proposals, and does the state funding go down as lottery revenues increase for state funding?
So millages, bond proposals, what happens if the community doesn't support? An operating millage is day-to-day operational cost. It's teacher salaries, it's resources, it's money that goes to students on a day-to-day basis. Operating millages that don't get passed could be detrimental to any school district, some more so than others. I know that our operating millage is about 13% of our budget, so you talk about $4.1 million that you could potentially have to cut out of your annual budget, and that's significant cuts. Other school districts, that operating millage is more revenue. Do you know what yours is of?
Not much more than
About the same.
Yeah.
And so those ones are pretty essential in order to keep providing the day-to-day. Bond proposals, obviously, you heard it. There's no other funding that's given to school districts to make those building improvements, to add classrooms, or to remodel spaces. From our standpoint, we've got a couple buildings that were built in the late 50s, 60s that boiler systems are outdated. And when you talk about a new boiler system in a building, you're talking about a $5 million project that we don't carry in our general funds to be able to just fund those sort of things, which is why occasionally we go for a bond proposal and ask the community to fund that over a certain amount of time. What was the last part? Lottery revenue?
Yeah. I mean, if the revenue for schools from lottery sales goes up, is that taken out of does the state say, well, you made this much extra? No. It all goes into the same pot?
The state takes that school aid fund. It's one pot of money. They take from different sources in order to fund that pot of money. And so I don't think it would change much.
A very specific question. Do you have any idea what percentage of students in your districts are on Medicaid? I mean, if you don't, I get it. It's not
That is
necessarily
a great,
keep it, you know, in hand.
a great question.
I mean, I know when I was teaching special ed, I had to do Medicaid
Yes.
billing every month, and it depended on my caseload, but I would probably say maybe 25 to 50% of the students that I had on my caseload.
Yep. Montague, 13.6% receive Medicaid, and Whitehall, 16.7% receive Medicaid. Thank you.
I did not have to extemporize. All right. Let's see. Here's a very specific Whitehall question. Why does Whitehall not have a sinking fund?
Historically, it hasn't been in place here, and you know it goes district by district. I don't think there has been the need in the past with some of the bond proposals and things that have gone through, but it's definitely something that I think districts consider when they don't have them. But it's just a district by district choice.
Well, Montague's is new. You have
2018. We did not have a sinking fund prior to 2018 as well.
Tell us what a sinking fund is.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep. So sinking fund is funds that can only be used for repairs or the repairs or the upkeep. So we cannot build something new with a sinking fund. It would just be the repairs of the current. So it's kind of that interim, let's say on a bond, where you have that bond, but it would take a period of time within the process to have that roll off of a tax levy, so that in that interim, when things were broken or there was things that needed to be fixed within your facilities that you needed additional supports, that sinking fund could be used for that.
Two more questions. One, again, these are kind of funding questions. The discrepancy between the beginnings of the fiscal year for the state and school years. So the state's October 1st school years are July 1st. Does that create any problems for you? It does, because I've been there.
Yeah.
I mean, take last year, for example,
Yep.
right? And we had numbers that we had been given and we're going off of an increase to certain areas, and then I forget what day it was, but in the middle of the night, they voted and passed the budget, and it had completely flipped on what we were being told kind of by the insiders of what it was going to be. So you have to prepare for that and be ready for it just in case, and not over budget. Leave yourself some protection there. And I'm new to this, so I'm just going off like what I'm doing right now. Jeff could probably answer it.
Well, they often compare it to you're throwing a dart at a dartboard. Obviously, there is some scope and sequence of where we think it might land. And in those, at least in Montague, 10 years ago, we were in some fiscal question, right? So we were making sure that we were conservatively budgeting our budget each and every year, and we've kept that. We kept that along, and obviously it's better for us to have things go in a positive manner than to get into that October or November and say, oh boy, what are we going to do? We have to cut, and because obviously that's not good for kids as well. So in the June months, we budget conservatively to make sure that there is that give or that a little bit in that process.
Yeah, I know it. When I was at Whitehall, we would have a spring special education department meeting, and we'd put together our dream scenario, and we'd put together the worst case scenario, and then we'd put together what we think is really going to happen scenario, and we just try to figure out which one's going to roll out. But we had a scenario for each one.
Yeah.
So I know you guys are doing the same thing. For sure. Yeah. All right. So last question, and we may have to explain a little bit here. Oh.
Same question, that calendar discrepancy, July 1, October 1. Why is, it's the nose on my face. Why has nobody stepped up and solved that? It's been here for decades.
Great question.
Well, that's a good question. Is it state mandated that your budgets begin on July 1st? Or is that a district by district?
Yeah, state mandated.
State mandated?
Yep.
Okay, well, that makes no sense then. Good question, Bruce. You can always count on Bruce to ask the hard questions. All right, so last
You also
question.
have to borrow money from a bank to make up that difference.
Right.
Pay interest on that, so
Yeah.
some of the money that's raised.
Depending on how
for-
much you have.
All right, last question, and we may have to do a little explaining here. How does the Headley Amendment affect funding, and would repealing it benefit schools?
Okay. Property values increase faster than inflation.
Yep, 5%.
And therefore, the state,
State says you can
Yep.
only go up by so much.
Yep.
And if your total collected is gonna be more than 5%, more than 5% above what you got the year before, then you have to cut back the millage rate that's applied so that
Yes.
you don't get too much money.
too much, yes.
Too much money is a worry.
Like there's too
Oh,
much,
oh,
like
there.
there's such a thing as too much money. for
Yeah,
schools.
really?
Right.
That's crazy.
In which, right, the state assumes that you're always gonna levy 18 in your operating millage, but they're making you cut it back, and if you don't have enough in your Headley override to bump it back to the 18 mills, then you lose out on funding. And so it's.
So the question there becomes like, oh, well, if you should have that more money because it is being rolled back, your taxes are more, you should have more money. The state still sees it as 18. So they see that more money, but they see that more money at 18. They don't see the rollback. They don't concern themselves with the rollback. They see it as 18 regardless. So when the property taxes, when the prices increase faster than the inflation, that's when, through the Headley rollback, it needs to be cut, which is fine, and we can work through that, but then the state sees it at 18, and that discrepancy between how the state sees it and how, I guess, the state sees it on Headley rollback are two totally different ways of funding.
So for example, like our proposal is 20 mills, and that's been a question I've received throughout this whole thing. Why are you asking for 20 mills when you can only levy 18? Well, over the next 10 years, our people project that we're gonna have a Headley rollback, and in order to build in that protection, so you don't constantly have to go back to voters, because we know the cost of that, and so they allow you to build that in. So that's why it's at 20, knowing that you can never levy more than 18.
All right.
I'm gonna add one more
Confusing enough?
thing, because everybody else said, what can you do in their
Yeah.
slideshow, and we did not do that. I think obviously you hear, talk to your legislator, those kind of things. And I guess the one thing for us that we've noticed over the past couple years, I'd say even longer than that, is when we come down to deadlines and talking to your legislator, sometimes being planned out a little bit more, and I understand they're under pressure as well, and they don't want to make certain decisions, but there's often times, especially over the past 10 years, where when they're on the brakes of a government shutdown, or if they're on, hey, the budget needs to be done by this time, or hey, while we're here, let's just stay till 2 in the morning and make sure we get this budget done. Tell them to think through that process, because we've seen some of the most detrimental funding components on either side of the aisle throughout time here, done at those times. And I think that that's important to remind our legislators to think through that process, that sometimes at 2 in the morning, your mind might not be the same as what it was at 8 in the morning, and you're thinking this is a great idea, and we're gonna hammer this out, we're gonna get this bill done, or we're gonna do these certain things, to just think through that process. Part of that is a selfish thing, so we don't have our checks blowing up and talking to our legislators and trying to get through that process as well. But yet at the same time, I think you see some of the budgets or some of the crazy things on either side take place during those last moments. And I think that if we can plan that out, and even if it's another day, and everybody wants to get it done, that's fine, but sleep on it, wake up in the morning, make those great choices the next morning. That would be my recommendation.
I just have one question for you. Did you explain, because I've been a little busy doing a few things, about your federal funding goes to the state, and then you get your money for the intermediate school district, but you might be paid out and not getting reimbursed if something doesn't come through? Because obviously, you know, you have, just like when you have like a trip with your boss, and you hand in your things and say, here's where I stayed at, you're already paying out the schools. before, you have to resubmit to get your money back, right? From the Indiana School District for a certain funding.
So, just making sure I understand your question. So, from the federal level, money goes to the state, then goes to the ISD before it comes to us. Yes, there is that process. It doesn't necessarily come federal straight to us. There is a process of chain that it goes through. Is money lost in that? Possibly. I mean, obviously the state says, hey, we need to operate and do these certain things, so then this money is taken. Then the, certain funds go to the ISD and they're designated in certain ways, and then it works its way. So to the local district. So yes, in some regards. I think that over time, though, they have tried to make certain funding streams specific straight to local districts in some regards, which can be beneficial as well.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Ready, Virginia?
I'm ready.
Okay. And I might be able to answer this question better than you can at this point. Well, I'll tell you in a minute. Well, no, I serve on the library board.
Oh, okay.
And I'm on the. I am.
Get a little more credibility.
I'm on the government liaison committee, so it's my job to keep my ear to the rail about what's going on and that kind of thing. So, what has been your response from our state senator and rep? I ask because they tend to give lip service and not real leadership. So, in terms of the cuts that have come through, and we talked about contacting them and asking them to provide state support to make up for the funding loss that we're going to experience at the federal level. So at our last meeting, I mentioned that I had contacted the governor and Representative Van Workum and Senator Hansen. The only one I've heard back from was Senator Hansen. I got a letter from him yesterday.
Bumstead.
Oh, Bumstead, sorry. Bumstead. Sorry, I'm living in a...
Vanderwall.
I'm sorry, Bumstead. Sorry, I apologize. See, the pandemic screwed everything up for me. I was talking to Doug about this earlier. I have no idea what year this is anymore. But anyway, yeah, so Bumstead sent me a letter. And it said absolutely nothing specific about the question that I asked him. It just laid out the state library budget, stuff that we already know, so I haven't heard anything.
That's what I was wondering, is how are our state legislators responding to the fears that we have about things being cut? Are you able to communicate with them? Are you getting negatives?
Yes. I'm not getting negatives.
You're not getting negatives?
I'm getting, the most positive thing I can report to you is that they hold their town, or their, what do they call it? They hold their office hours here pretty regularly.
Okay.
And I always make a point of coming in to talk to them. Representative Vanderwall certainly knows who I am, even out of context. We have a relationship enough that he recognizes me. And he always responds positively. I don't know that he votes that way, but he says he values libraries. He says he values libraries. And on the federal level, so we have a congressman who comes and he sends representatives here to hold office hours. And I've gone out and spoken with that young man. And he has said, well, all I can tell you, because I can't speak for my boss, all I can tell you is that we hold our office hours in libraries for a reason. We want all of our constituents to know that the library is a place for them and that it has value in the community. So I took that as a very positive sign.
But we're all individuals. Is there, if we could organize as a group to go speak to a legislator, because we're also divided, and the legislators could just not hold their town halls, not have any, we can go to a town hall meeting, but if they're not there, what good does it do us? So is there anybody that's coordinating a movement to actually try to move our legislators vehemently in the positive direction?
Are you talking just locally? Or
locally, or even, well,
the
right
Michigan
now.
Library Association has a really strong advocacy.
Yes, but what about the schools and the funding that we get through yours and the services that we get through you? There's no real collective that's going to our they can vote however they want. They can tell you what they're going to do. But if they don't see us in strength, because I don't think anybody wants the cuts to the schools or to those services or to the library. So it feels like we're individual rather than group, and they can ignore us easily.
They can, but they don't need to see you physically in a group. So emails, phone calls, and letters. In a previous life, I worked for a state senator in Lansing. she would take what was in the file. If you sent a letter in, it got put in the file. And she would pick up that file and she would look at those before she took a vote.
Well, my daughter worked for a representative and she threw them in the garbage can.
Oh, no, ours got filed.
Yeah, they didn't get filed. They weren't addressed. And it was just like, that was a nuisance and not to be done. So she worked for a legislator in the same,
Well, I think the larger point is you just need to take action. If you care.
individually though.
Individually and collectively.
Yeah, she's
So-
powerless individually.
Well, the
No,
education
not
system-
necessarily. I don't want to get into it, but I do want to move on, okay? Because we have other questions, and I think your point's been
Okay.
made, so I really
All
appreciate
right.
it. Yeah.
I just wanted to say, if anybody is interested in collective communication with representatives, Montague Commoners and White Lake Area Futures get together to do the Dance for Democracy protests at the Weather Vane on Fridays at noon. And then we go over to North Grove and write postcards to our representatives together in a group. So we're able to get, sometimes 40 or 50 postcards all sent out on the same issue.
Okay.
So that's one option if you want to take collective
That's
action.
better than nothing. I like that option.
Okay. So this question, I'm trying to, I think this is asking who all is in our district and which communities in the area are paying into our millage.
Oh, for libraries, okay. So we have, the White Lake Community Library has the school district boundaries as its boundaries. So if you live in the White House School District, you're paying library taxes here. If you don't live in the White House School District, you're probably paying taxes to the Muskegon Area District Library. They were about 10 years behind us in forming a district. They formed theirs in 2006. So they're doing the same thing. They levy their own millage. It is, can't tell you how much. It's more than a mill. Ours is just under a mill. Theirs is over a mill. And Hackley is another library you could possibly live in. That's Muskegon Public Schools boundaries. And Fruitport is just a breakaway. So I can't tell. They broke away from Mattle about 5-10 years ago now.
And there's a millage for the county.
Yes, the county village is this.
In August.
In August, yeah.
So does that include Montague Library? Or is
Montague is part of
with-
Mattle. Montague is part of the Muskegon Area District Library. We did invite them to join when we were forming this district library, and they declined. They were afraid that we would build it on the wrong side of the causeway, build it on the wrong side.
Well, there you go.
And you did. And we did.
So if you already explained this, maybe explain again what are LSTA funds?
Oh, those are Library Service and Library Science and Technology Act grants. So it's part of the IMLS funding. It comes out as these LSTA grants, and those are used for digitization or for scholarship funds or for, what did we get another big one for? It was LSTA. It was an LSTA grant that got us the Family Place Library certification throughout the county.
Okay, this one I could answer, but if you want to answer it, that's fine. Since there is no direct federal funding, does the state and federal government have any ability to tell us what books we can and cannot have?
Wow, talk about a hot stove. All right.
High five to that person.
No, they can't.
And in this case, ladies and gentlemen, no is a complete sentence.
No book bans here.
Well, there was a right to read bill that made it up for a vote, and they didn't time it very well, and it went into lame duck, and it didn't pass. But that's another story. Let's see. A lot of these are really kind of the same in terms of how our service is going to be affected by potential budget cuts. But right now. Again, I'll let you sort of speak to that. We're doing pretty well.
We are okay. The doors will stay open, the lights will stay on, we will have staff here. That is not in danger at this time. We have our .7 operating in perpetuity, even if the additional .25 doesn't pass in 2030. We'd have to cut things back pretty significantly at that point, but we would still stay open. That's not the issue. The quality and the quantity of services we can provide is what's at issue. So the summer reading supports that we get, I didn't even talk about that, but some of the federal money supports the nationwide summer reading program that gives us all kinds of graphics and other supports we can use for summer reading. The statewide delivery would probably dry up. I don't see a real way for our cooperative or for our state to make that happen without any of the federal funding. The databases, I could not afford them. With our budget, I could not afford to pay for those ourselves. So some of that would go away unless the state backfilled that for us.
And I really like this one. This is a good question to end on, because it's positive, because we do these things. What role does the library play for residents without internet or educational resources at home?
Oh, yeah, that's a nice softball. We supply hotspots. So I don't know if you know what a hotspot is, but it's a mobile Wi-Fi device. So you can connect as many things as you want to that if you don't have internet at home. We have 50 of them that we circulate. They are all currently checked out. We circulate laptops. We provide Wi-Fi here in the building. We provide free Wi-Fi in the parking lot 24/7. And it is used quite frequently by our police department, I am here to tell you. We have 3 different charging stations with internet at those solar picnic tables around town, so people can charge their devices, they can plug in a computer, they can use the Wi-Fi that's provided there throughout the
And
community.
it's solar, so that after the big storm, I came on down here and charged my iPhone.
And if you didn't hear her, she said the kiosks out here they have solar panels on them.
Yep, those are solar.
So she came down after the big windstorm and charged up all her stuff.
Yep, yeah, Catchmark supplies the internet, to give them full credit, they supply the internet at the North Mears Promenade parking lot behind Fetch and in front of Hanson Hill.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate your attention. We had some great questions. Thanks again to the presenters tonight. I guess the one last pitch I'm going to allow you guys to do, and I know some of you have already done this already, and we'll start with Dan and move down the line. What can the community do to help support what you do?
You know, I think a lot is, it's building relationships within the community and with your legislators and just being positive and supportive of that, and knowing that, we're working hard to do good things for your kids. And I think that makes a difference. That makes a difference of that positivity and support, that we have in the community.
I would definitely say, excuse me, to contact us and volunteer with us, but also contact us to let us know what services you're in need of in your areas. As I've developed programs, I'm looking at 5 counties, and I realize that not each county needs the exact same services. So definitely contact me to let me know what services you're in need of in your areas.
And I just want to put in a plug for volunteerism in general. Volunteering is one of the best things you can do in your life. It makes a big difference to not just the institutions, but the individuals. And as one of my spiritual mentors always used to tell me, the best way to get out of your head is to help somebody else. Go ahead.
I was just giving you a nod of agreement, yes.
Amen. All right, thank you. Okay. All right.
So I'd have to agree with Dan. Stay positive, right? Build those relationships throughout the community. Presume positive intentions and be nice. I think that oftentimes there's differences of opinions, and making sure that we stay on the same page for the good of the community is vitally important. Not only for the adults, but then that's mirrored for our children, and our children see that, and that's who they're going to become as adults as well. So making sure that we communicate well with each other and stay informed on the things for that common ground. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I've said it before. I think one of the best things that we offer in this country is a free education for our children. And it is extremely important that as local communities, we support that. And that doesn't mean money. That just means supporting our children and what they're trying to accomplish and what they're trying to learn, because they are the future. And without a strong quality education, what do we have to look forward to with our future? And so, no school district is perfect. We have things that we know we can work on every day and that we can improve upon every day. And we do that, we care. We're in this business for the children. And hopefully, we can make the entire communities that we live and work in stronger because of a strong school system. So just remember, and I say that, just remember that when you see some of the misinformation and things that are shared, especially on social media, I know I speak for probably both of us. Call us, email us. If you've got a question, happy to give you the factual information.
All right, great. And, and you kind of alluded to this, and I'll just say, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Right? There are no such things as perfect institutions. Unicorns do not exist. So don't expect a unicorn, and work to make things better all the time. Continuous improvement.
Yeah.
Virginia?
I agree with everything they said. The only thing I would add is share your stories, said the librarian. Stories say so much more than data. Individually with that, there's some bookmarks up there with the spot where the Michigan Library Association is collecting stories on library usage. We'd love to have you share it there too. That's a good way to make a more collective impact like
Yes,
we're
I
talking
can
about.
get that.
Yeah, on that note, it's something to think about here is that when you see advertising on TV, they're not giving you data. Scientists look at data, they don't care about anecdotes. But advertising, that's all they care about.
Yeah.
And the same thing applies, is it hits our emotions. And legislatures are going to get affected the same way. It's the stories, it's those personal stories that carry much more weight than the data, even though it shouldn't. It does.
Absolutely, yeah. Emotions are more powerful than facts. Look at any election. That's really what it boils down to. All right.
One question.
Oh.
I'd just like to, I was stunned by the Medicaid data because 16.9% of the students may be on Medicaid, but in the region, we're at 50% in the region. And your students and your loved ones are part of that. So if the student is on Medicaid or they're not on Medicaid, perhaps grandma is. And if we lose Medicaid money in this area, so too do we lose the assistance for all of that Medicaid provides to our families. So it's a big deal. Thanks.
All right, Melanie? Oh, I was going to do that.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Look, except I'm going to.
Oh, all right. Well, then, never mind. I guess I had the order of operations wrong.
Oh, dear.
Do you remember the order of operations?
Yes.
Come on, there we go. Thank you, Doug. A+ on your quiz. Here's a lovely poem I would like to share. It's called All the Love. If I could bundle all the love in the world and scatter it wide, replace all the hate, would it not make this a gentler place? If I could bring peace to counties at war, quiet the guns, open the doors, would it not make for a better world? If people could see inside each other's hearts, might empathy bloom and judgment depart? We all carry beliefs, our own firm convictions, but too often they stand in the way of listening, of growing, of finding common ground. We are not born with hatred in our bones. It is taught, passed down, planted in fear. When we are young, we reach out with open hands, not fists. To evolve into something kinder, we must learn again to tolerate, to listen, to understand, to love, not just our friends, but all of our fellow men. And there's J-L-E at the bottom. I don't know who that is.
Julie.
Oh, well, thank you, Julie. Right on. Okay. Yeah, tell them to get out of here, will you? You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here, right, guys?
Not yet, not yet.
No, I know, I'm just kidding.
Not yet, please, not yet. So, just to wrap it up, do a little housekeeping here. I'm Melanie, I'm not Vienna. I'm Melanie Schasma, one of the planners from Common Ground Community for this evening. If your question wasn't answered today, please put it on this sheet. And we will get it to the appropriate person. I know it's hard to write fast enough sometimes when that basket was coming around, I can tell.
With their email.
Yeah, and make sure your email address is on there because otherwise they won't be able to get a hold of you
There's a whole stack of
to give you the answer. And then we do have a basket over here for these to go in on your way out. I don't know if you saw your survey, it's the yellow one. But if you don't have one of these, raise your hand and we'll get it to you. Anybody that didn't get one of these on your seat? Everybody's cool with that? Good. Fill that out, and that'll go in a different basket. It's a good thing Julie has lots of baskets. Now, the mission statement is the one that Sumac told you about, that's in a really tiny little print there. So just to remind you what we're about, one of the questions on this sheet here says, if you're interested in joining our group, provide your email below. I do want to kind of go over our mission statement so you know what you're getting yourself into if you decide to write something under there. What we're here for is to foster an inclusive and understanding community in the White Lake area through education, dialogue, and mutual support. We are dedicated to rebuilding trust and safety and empowering individuals to express their experiences and concerns in a respectful, open environment. As we navigate our changing society, we aim to unite people across differences and encourage healing, resilience, and constructive engagement for a stronger, more informed community. The Common Ground Community Planning Group would like to encourage you to keep these conversations going after tonight's event is long over. Think of one thing that you learned tonight and then use it to start a conversation with one or two of your friends or family. In this next week, so don't put it off. This next week, try to do that. Speaking with others who couldn't be here tonight is an opportunity for each of us to share something that we learned and also to listen to what our friends find interesting about the topic. Okay, so finish filling this out. Finish filling this out. Now we are going to have another event probably the end of June. Another thing too, make sure that you write on here what other areas you're interested in hearing about, and if we didn't think of the right one, write it down here on the one that is left blank. We will hopefully be giving your preferences first choice. We'll try to get speakers in those areas, whatever you write here, that's what we'll go for first. And then, so we'll do that in June and probably one in July as well, I think. It looks like we have a lot of interest. We filled up the room and we had to add more chairs. So I think that we can probably fill up another room or two. I want to thank, I know you guys have been thanked before, but I want to thank you again from the Common Ground community people. And I know, because I've done those things before, it takes a lot of prep. It takes a lot of messing around with these PowerPoints and get the right pictures and the right things. And your two-pronged thing, it came out beautiful. Yeah, it zipped in there, it zipped over the top. It was really nice.
Have to be dramatic.
You know, that stuff takes time and effort, you know. Got to get all your research together and get it all put together, and I appreciate what you guys did just to get ready to be here, and then your time tonight, and you know, the fun time it is to get in front of people and answer questions that you don't know what's coming. That's always fun too. So thank you guys for being here and informing us about what's going on. And I think we ought to have the educators come back because they don't know anything yet.
Yeah.
So I
They need to
think
be
we ought to
educated.
come back next year and find out when they do know something. I think we should ask them again. So anyway, and here's what I want to say to you people that are in the audience. Thank you for being a good citizen of the White Lake area. And that means a person who's interested in engaging in their community, who are keeping themselves informed about local issues, and who are concerned about the well-being of their community. That's just to name a few. I had a lot of other things on the list, but I knew you were going to want to leave by now. We are so glad that you are investing your time to be here this evening, and we hope to see you again. Thank you, everyone.